Ethos Village. We're here tonight again for another episode of Town Hall, the Ethos Town Hall meetings. Tonight we're talking about financial literacy, and have some really cool guests on today. Ralph Thompson, Tanner Wells, Toya Coleman, Jay Hayes, and Andy Lee. I'm gonna let you guys introduce yourself, but these guys are very esteemed in regards to financial literacy in their own right, based on their own professions, been directly connected to financial literacy, obviously just as individuals, as husbands and wives, and just in what they do in everyday business. Um, so first about Ethos Village. Ethos Village comes from the old African saying, "It takes a village to raise a child." It is a virtual platform that allows for us to come together as a community to strategize how we can better pour into our children and respective families. We use generational wisdom from the village to help our children redefine their mental paradigm and identity, purpose, value, and vision. So that being said, today is, like I said, Financial Literacy Month. And let's start off and just talking about financial literacy. I'll start with you, Tanner. Tell me about yourself, what you do, and what's your general understanding and concepts around financial literacy as you're talking to your clients.
Yeah, as Mike said, my name's Tanner Wells. Currently working as an associate in Goldman Sachs Wealth Management, and actually just received my Chartered Financial Analyst designation not too long ago. So, in my role, we primarily work with executives on just putting together full, comprehensive financial plans. And what's interesting about that is it's very similar to working with any type of clientele. You know, I've had many conversations with Michael about financial literacy and just in his experience in working with people on wealth management, financial advising, and what he always tells me and what's been known to be true is that money is emotional. And when you're dealing with people and talking about money, you're more so talking about their dreams, aspirations, and goals and things that are very close to their heart. So in our role, in my role, that's kind of the core understanding. We can put together something that's perfect for the client and hits all the marks, but ultimately things change and people's feelings really kind of take over the financial plan. So truly, it's about getting those people to understand what that money means to them and what that allows them to do, and in understanding, I guess the reasoning behind their goals and things of that nature.
Absolutely. I appreciate that. Andy Lee, emotional. Talk about emotion around money. I know you've been around the industry for several years with money concepts, and talking about the emotion of money as you talk to clients and work with clients. How does emotion kind of dig into them making decisions or not making decisions?
Yeah, my name's Andy Lee. I do real estate investment tax planning. I've been doing it since 1993. Been through a few cycles over the last 27, 28 years. And, one of the things I think that I've found people in general don't, it's almost a fearful concept to realize what money is and what it's all about. And it's going to depend on each individual. And being that I kind of grew up in the industry through the mid to late 90s and kind of into that whole dot bomb thing for you people who were back in the industry back then. It was really scary, and there was kind of that build up to it, and I think the whole purpose of having a good financial advisor and being able to help them take the emotion out of those decisions is so important. And the only way that you can really, in my opinion, capitalize on that is to find, as Tanner was saying, to find out what their real true goals and objectives are and how they think. Some people think visually, some people think emotionally, some people think auditorially. So being able to explain things in people's own language, I think, is really important. We see that a lot, kind of on the Hispanic side. We're in California, so we have one of our advisors, that speaks Spanish, and just that alone, to be able to sit down with the client, speak in their own language, gives them that ease and that settlement. I do think, as far as it's important that we have advisors. I worked for a guy named Dave Ramsey for a while, a couple of years back, and doing wealth management in the California Bay Area. And one of the things I found out was, at the level where most of the Ramsey clients, where it's a completely different kind of a mindset, they're working towards, most of them are working towards kind of getting out of that hole of debt. And, they have this comprehension that, before they understand it, that debt is good, and it's a way for me to leverage my way into wealth. And being able to communicate with a client is so important, because if they don't understand the language you're talking, their emotions are going to be all over the place. So, it's relative to each type of client. I work a lot more on the institutional side, which is so much easier, because you have somebody that has that mentality. But we have about 15 advisors that I manage and I oversee, and we still have a plethora of different levels of people that we work with. So you really got to read the people first, I think, and then be able to communicate in their language is the bottom line, as far as I'm concerned.
No, I appreciate that. That's a very good point. Um, Toya, talk to me about financial literacy as you see it in the insurance industry.
Absolutely. Good evening to all. So, for another way to look at insurance is the protection of the assets that you all have acquired. My job is to protect your assets. Your assets can be protected, whether it's your home, you'll need that protected. Even if it is you've accumulated funds in different investments, you want to protect those against any. Houston and Texas, rather, is a very litigious area. So you just want to make sure that you're protecting those against any lawsuits that may come because you've been in an auto accident, cause of death, or serious injury. So being financially literate definitely means protecting your assets, and that is what I do.
Fantastic. Lawsuits, protection. That's important for sure.
Absolutely.
Ralph Thompson, talk to me.
I'm Ralph Thompson. I'm with North Dallas Bank. I'm a market president based in Frisco and serving pretty much Collin County. Been in the business about 40 years. Been through some cycles for sure. It's kind of funny talking to some colleagues that are my age. We talked about the Great Recession and how, having been through banking in the 80s in Texas, that was like, child's play.
Right.
So, for the longest time, we felt like we had a target on our back, and we were, an endangered species. But it's a great business. I always wanted to know what to do when I grew up, and I'm kind of grown up now. And looking back, banking has offered me so many different opportunities, and we touch on we kind of cross over, whether Toya in your business with insurance and protecting assets, or you guys that are in the investment business, we like to capture all that and kind of approach our clients from a holistic standpoint. And our job is to control the balance sheet as best that we can by advising our clients against certain types of leverage, like too much unsecured. There's this term out there called fearless borrowers, and there are people that just feel like they debt is not an issue, but it depends on what kind of debt it is, right? I mean, if you've got a home, most people don't have 500,000 or more to plunk down, so you're going to have to get into some debt there. But it's just the type of debt and just understanding how that leverages your cash flow and just being careful. And we like to term ourselves, every bank I've ever worked at, which is a half a dozen in my lifetime, have called themselves a conservative lender. it's just the nature of our business. But we kind of have coined this phrase responsible lenders, and sitting down with clients, getting them to understand, what the risks are. And so, it's a great job. It's, important for us to give back and offer to the community in general, whether it's a consumer or business person, uh, the experience and, insights that we might have. So
Fantastic.
thanks for this honor to speak tonight.
No, yeah, no, this is a very important subject matter, right? I mean, we're all coming from different aspects of the business with different lenses. And this is kind of why we're all here. Coach Hayes, um, definitely, you see it from a different perspective. I know financial literacy personally, as an NFL coach. Talk to me about financial literacy as you see it.
Well, for me and my family, over the years, I've been in the coaching profession and was a professional athlete when I was young, and then got into coaching. Was in the business world for a while, but mainly I've dealt with people on the panel, like that are on the panel, just trying to build our nest egg, so that now that I'm 62 and getting ready to ride off into the sunset, I'm trying to make sure that Susan and I are set up for what we want to do, to be able to go visit our grandchild and visit our children all over the country. We have, our daughter lives in San Diego, our son and his family live in New Orleans. Jasmine, her family live in San Diego. Miles lives in St. Pete, near us. So we're, kind of just to that point where we have done some good investing over the years. We were fortunate over the years with selling homes and moving and things like that, that we were able to build some wealth for ourselves, and are set up to just live comfortably when we choose to get off the ride of working. Right now, I'm mainly doing consulting work, but I may start coaching again if the XFL starts up and stuff like that. So, and I get healthy, getting through this surgery, but it's all something that Susan and I have been working for. We've been married for over 30 years now, and have been smart with the things, and been fortunate. We've been made some good decisions, and then been blessed by some of the decisions that we've made. People were talking earlier about emotions and things like that. When I've been in the market when it's dipped, and I've been in the market when it's been riding high. I think you have to be patient. That's one of the big things that I've learned through this all. A lot of times you got to remember it's paper. It's just paper that out there, and sometimes it's really high and sometimes it gets low. When things go low, sometimes you need to just sit there and wait, and not jump the gun or jump out of investments that, and that's why you have the advisors like Ralph and Toya and Andrew, that steer you in the right direction. So you have to get good people to help you, and that's something we've been able to do through the course of my working career, and just Susan's been really good about saving money and setting us up and getting us in good vehicles for when we refinance and those types of things, to make sure our debt's not too high, and,
Right.
those types of things. And if we can pay things off, we do, and pay down our debt on, say, like our house. We have pretty expensive piece of property here in St. Petersburg that the price is just going up and up and up. So, we're thinking about moving out of this place and getting a different place at some point. So, just because of the market's crazy,
Right.
that you can maybe double or triple, your money on something that you bought, so that's plays into account.
No, beautiful, definitely. A lot of different moving parts, with the motion and like you said, trying to be disciplined in your value system, right? And being non-emotional and say, hey, we have a goal in mind. This is what we need to do, and just kind of be locked and loaded to stay the course. Let me bring it back to Andy. Andy, you've been in the business for a while as a broker. How has financial literacy changed over the years, right? How you look at the older generation versus the younger generation. Has financial literacy in your mind changed as far as how you explain it and go through it with your clients today?
Well, the markets in general have changed so much. I think it's, going from when I started, and I mean, early 90s, they were still using tickets down on the floor. And,
Right, right.
things are trading so much faster these days. And, those whipsaws and emotions have a lot to do with it. But I also think that, you're talking about the X-Geners and the millennials and the baby boom population. You have a completely different mindset as to, well, for lack of a better term, attention span.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody back in the 90s, it was we sit down, we're face to face. It's a relationship. It still is. But every one of my clients that I have, and with all my advisors, Mike, you've been with many concepts for, we're family,
Mm-hmm.
and we communicate with each other, and we didn't have a lot of data available at our fingertips. So I think what's happened, at least from my experience, is this shift from people being a little bit more, or I should say less reactionary, because the news wasn't moving as quickly as it is, and it was less spastic and anxious than it seems to be now.
Right.
I've had to fire clients in the past just because I had one gentleman that called me every day on his way home from work in rush hour traffic to ask me what his account value was.
Oh, wow.
Every day. And he was a good sized client, I mean, at the time, I don't know, he had $500,000 in bucks with me, but I thought, I just can't take this, because first of all, I didn't even have the asset value at the end of the day because it was 5 o'clock in the afternoon.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that we're starting to see people more reactionary. And for me, I found myself doing a lot more psychological appeasement, if you will, to being able to say, listen, it's still a long-term investment. This is something that you don't have to worry about tomorrow or the day after tomorrow or even next year. And I think one of the things that Toya was talking about is really important, is being able to protect those assets. Things change and things will change. I mean, that's the only constant that we have out there. And as as Jay was talking about for my example, right? I was married for 21 years in the Bay Area. We bought our house in 1994, and my ex-wife just sold my old house for 1.6 million more than we paid for it. Well, that was part of my retirement plan up until 2008 or 2009. So I think one of the things that people need to understand as far as wanting to or learning as a client of anybody is we have to be malleable enough and be able to change the plan going forward. Nothing is ever set in stone.
Right.
And if you can get that across to the clients, say, hey, if we have bad times, if we have another '08, if we have another dot-com bomb, we don't know what's coming up. We've had a pretty much a rolling market. Where are we going to go? Sooner or later, it's going to come down. But we've got to be able to get across to a client the understanding that we can adjust, we can change, and we can refocus and aim. So,
Right.
life isn't over if the market drops, as long as you planned for it.
Right.
And that's the thing. Do your planning. Winging it just doesn't work in this world. I mean, it did when you were 21 years old and, you were working at the nightclub and working at the car dealership and you didn't have a worry in the world. But when you have, children and grandchildren, you have to have a plan. And I think it's becoming easier in that respect because everything is so spastic. As far as being able to talk to clients and bring them into the fold of our family as far as financial planning clients, because it's so ominous to so many people
Right.
that they really need help. And they just want someone that they feel that they can trust. And,
Absolutely.
that's key. If you can get them to realize that I'm here to help you and we're going to work together on this thing. And we're going to keep adjusting this plan going forward so it best fits those objectives. And that doesn't mean jumping in and out of the market. Jay's right. The market's down. It's just paper. Sooner or
Right.
later, it's going to come back. I mean, you may need to make certain changes, but it's really not about freaking out and jumping out of the market or going, hey, look, that guy's making a lot of money and getting greedy and trying to jump in at the same time. So I do think there's some more acceptance to financial advisors these days than there were back in the 90s and early 2000s. At least to me, it seemed like it was a little tougher to have a client listen to what our expectations were.
Absolutely. No, that's a good point. Tori, I'm going to ask you the same question, and then Tanner, I want you to be ready. I'm going to bounce back to you and talk about, obviously you being a little bit younger, getting in the industry over the past, 5 to 6 years, how it's changed for you and your clients from your lens, looking at it from, mid 20s, late 20s. So Toya, tell me how this works in regards to insurance. So when you're having your clients and you're talking about protection, is it hard for you to explain, hey, you're making your money, you got your assets here. How do I actually get across the benefit of protecting those assets?
So I'm going to have different types of conversations with my clients according to their socioeconomic status. I'm going to have a different conversation about protecting assets with maybe an engineer, first level
Okay.
engineer, than I am a CEO because they're different assets. I may have a conversation with a CEO about a $5 million umbrella, whereas I'm going to have a conversation with maybe an engineer with just increasing the liability exposure on his auto policy to $500,000. So you just have to ask them point blank questions. First of all, would you ballpark your net worth?
Mm-hmm.
And you do have to get to a level of trust with them. I would agree with the previous speaker. You have to get to a point of trust because you have to ask some very pointed questions. You
Mm-hmm.
have to ask income. You have to ask their, like I mentioned about their net worth. So once we establish sort of what assets they need to protect, then we can have a conversation about what policies we need to put in place to properly protect them.
Fantastic. No, that's right on point. Tanner, I mean, how do you see it? You being younger in the industry, I think some of this obviously is going to resonate with you, but you have clients that want things now, right? I want to make my money now. Maybe I don't need a financial plan. I can go ahead and go on the internet and I can read myself. Why pay for Tanner Wells or Annie Lee or a Ralph when I can do it myself off the internet? What would you say?
Yeah, I think Andy kind of touched on it, in his when he initially responded about financial literacy, and it's really having somebody that can help you take the emotion out of those decisions and not being whipsawed around with the market, but understanding it's a long game. And then I think even more so if I'm thinking about with my peers more specifically, I think just having the humility to know that you don't know it all, right?
Right.
Being on the call with many of the people on this panel, there's a lot of life experience that has seen a lot of ups and downs in the markets, has seen a lot of changes in society alone, and there's wisdom to be gained from someone like myself or somebody that's in my same age demographic. And so having that humility to understand that you don't know it all um, is important for, I'd say, any person that's looking to build a long-term financial plan and to approach somebody and really be willing to listen. Doesn't mean you got to take whatever they say as the gospel, but really be willing to learn and listen. I think that's an important factor to have for somebody around my age. And then if you're working with, like myself, working with clients that are older, um, understanding that that same dynamic. You might have a lot of technical knowledge and experience just from learning and reading books and things of that nature. But once again, they have life experience. And so you kind of have to relate to that and understand that and really understand where their fears are, because ultimately, you're trying to help them not make a bad decision. You're trying to help them steward their resources well. And you need to have that trust with them before they're going to trust you with whatever they're telling you or whatever you're telling them. And especially whenever, the market's dropping like crazy and things are hitting the fan, when it's all rainbows and roses, it's easy to take somebody's advice. But whenever things kind of become pretty tense, that's whenever the value of that relationship is actually important. So I think,
Absolutely.
to sum it up, like I said at the beginning, just having the humility to understand that you don't know it all, and being willing to approach any situation really just with a learning mentality.
Gotcha. No, it's right on point. Being humble, right? I mean, that's a value system that we talk about a lot, and sometimes we're not humble, and that causes us to lose money, right? Get emotional and all that good stuff. So, Ralph, coming back to you, tell me in your mind as you see it. Again, you've been with the bank for many, many years, very successful in your own right. Uh, Talking about being rich versus being wealthy. What is that? I mean, have you seen a lot of rich folks come into your bank, right? And they've generated wealth, or maybe they think they're wealthy and they're just rich. What would you say about that?
Uh, yeah, I mean, there's a distinction to be sure, and it's relative. I mean, just think about us compared to other countries around the world,
Hmm.
people that, we don't consider to be rich at all here. Um, but certainly, to the point that's been made, you know, multiple times already tonight about relationships, it's, hopefully we all have developed the trust factor that somebody referred to earlier, where our clients, will have an open dialogue to understand that what they might have today is not going to be around 10 years from now, or, there are cycles, and to expect the unexpected. And so, you know, if you're making a $500,000 or $1 million today, how much are you keeping? And
Hmm.
what's your time horizon before, like an NFL player, NFL stands for not for long, right? So,
Right.
you can't spend the same kind of money as a 25-year-old athlete. You know, you can't spend that same money as a 40-year-old retired athlete unless
Right.
you just find some other, you know, career that's going to supplant or replace that revenue. But it's an interesting dynamic for sure. One of the things I wanted to talk about though really was budgeting.
Hmm.
And the I've banked a lot of people over the years that make a lot of money, but
Hmm.
they spend 110% of it. And
Mm.
then I've had people that didn't make a lot of money relatively that spent 50% of it. And
Mm.
so which one was rich, which one was wealthy. You know, one made a lot of money, didn't have much left over. The other didn't make a lot, but kept a lot. So it's kind of the discipline, you know, and how early in their career or life they learn that is crucial.
Absolutely, that is critical. Coach Hayes, now I know you've seen that many, many times over as an NFL coach, and I'm sure you've brought up lessons to your players about budgeting and making sure you take care of your money, and obviously, you know, understanding that you have to develop the ability to be wealthy based on your investments. That you come in being rich based on the contract that you sign, but obviously there's some work that you got to do to become wealthy.
Right.
What have you told you guys over the years?
Well, you know, I've learned a lot from my players during this time, during the course of my career, because, like you say, they have gone on and, you know, maybe come from nothing and ended up with having so much. And I've seen guys that have handled it well, and I've seen guys that have not. And usually, the guys that don't handle it well, they have some traumatic experience that happens to them. You know, earlier, Andy, I believe, was talking about, you know, divorce, and, you know, you get stuff like that happening. You get guys that have chemical problems, you know, alcohol problems, you know, and don't have the discipline like Ralph talked about. You know, they spend 110% of their money, go out and buy a bunch of cars, and, you know, and they have had those talks with guys, you know, when you see, and some of our friends, Michael, you know who I'm talking about,
Right.
that, you know, would have 6 and 7 cars, you know, at an early age, and shouldn't have been doing that. You know, guys that had degrees from an esteemed place on the hill there, and just didn't, you know, were having too much fun and just thought it would never end. So, but then I've had other guys that I've seen them go back to school, get their master's degree, you know, finish their undergrad, get their master's degree, start businesses, and have become very successful. I mean, I have guys that such as yourself, and other guys that throughout my career, that, you know, just see what they're doing, and, you know, starting businesses, and some of them are still playing, but are starting businesses. So, and just the type of the guys that are humble enough to keep learning. You know, Tanner talked about being humble. That's huge.
Right.
You know, that just knowing, I've told my players this, because my father used to say this to me. He used to say, it's pretty hard to tell you something when you know everything. And, you know, and he didn't say it that gently either. But, and I think I probably said that to you when you played for me.
Absolutely.
But, you know, that was something I learned a long time ago from Jewett Hayes. And, you know, you just have to be able to understand, hey, I might not be the smartest guy in the room, but there's always something to learn from somebody. And that's what I've tried to do. And I've tried to be a person to give knowledge to my players, not just about football, but about life, and about, you know, the relationships that they're in, and being surrounding yourself with good people, not only friends, but, you know, your spouses, whoever you pick to, you know, that has a lot to do with where you end up at the end of this. And, you know, at the end, you know, you can't take it with you. There's no U-Hauls behind a hearse. So, you know, I want to be able to live comfortably while I'm here. And if there's stuff left for my family, fine, or if we decide to disperse what we have to other entities or charities or whatever, that we'll do that. And the kids better be working on those types of things themselves. And I know for a fact my daughter and her husband are, and I think Jesse's working on it, and Miles has a head for figures. So, he understands. They all like nice things. One of the things I told my son-in-law when he was marrying my daughter, I said, look, now she's been going to bowl games and staying in suites and eating at top class restaurants her whole life. I said, good luck to you. So she's been flying on planes and all that stuff. I said, good luck to you, son. I just want you to know. She likes the big plate of sushi,
Not the little one.
Not the little one. She doesn't like that. Don't like that stuff. So I said, you better be on your job because I'm not taking her back.
That's outstanding.
Yeah.
Ralph, we'll come back to you, Ralph. So you've been working with Ethos Kids, and you've been working with the legacy plan around identity, purpose, and value and vision. How do you see just the legacy plan, a life plan, as far as a person's value system, how that will dictate how they invest money or not? What have you seen?
Well, I think for sure a person's values does dictate their investment philosophy to a certain degree, for sure. Like for myself, I feel like I'm a pretty generous person relative to all the customers I've dealt with over the years.
Mm-hmm.
And, like Coach just said, if I may call you that, Coach, you can't take it with you. And you don't want to give your kids too much where they don't have to do anything, so they need to kind of earn as much of it on their own as they can. But, I like somebody mentioned being a good steward or being a steward. That's what we should be doing is being a good steward with our money, and not, if you want to gamble some, make sure it's a relatively small portion of what it is that you're going to need in retirement or whatever.
Right.
But, it does, your values certainly dictate, I think, your philosophy about investing and how you spend your money.
Absolutely. Andy, going back to you, talking about identity. I know you talked about, working with different types of clients, Hispanic, African American, white, Asian. Just looking at identity and how people see themselves, maybe the occupation that they may have, does that have a connection in how people spend money or invest money?
Definitely. My last name is Lee, so when I started in this business, I got cold calls that I could barely understand their English. There's just different cultures to really understand, and I think that's a beautiful thing. I love the fact that the Asian culture is different than the Hispanic culture, is different than the Norwegian culture, which is kind of where I come from, the background. And I think it's really important that as advisors ourselves, that we understand that. And I really love the fact that Tanner and pretty much the whole team today has been talking about the humble aspects of it. When we're young, we think we can do it all, and we don't fear a lot of things. And as you get older, it's you worry a little bit more about breaking those bones and stepping on toes. So I think having a resource team is very important. And for me, I know just enough to be dangerous on a whole bunch of subjects, but I'm really deep, on the tax planning, highly appreciated asset aspect of it. But when it comes to it, I know enough to be able to back off and go, okay, listen, this is an issue with 401ks. I'm going to talk to Anthony here. I'm going to talk to Brent. I'm going to get their input on it. And having a team that I use as my resource team, having people that have a little bit of that different cultural aspect just helps me tremendously with being able to communicate with those types of clients. So I think that every situation is different. To me, I'm a frustrated musician for the last 50 years, and I always like writing music. I know Tanner's a big time musician, as is my daughter. And writing songs is kind of a cool thing. The problem you get into, sometimes you get into a rut and you're writing the same thing, but when you get out of that rut, you can kind of break onto a new level. That's why I love this business. It's a lot the same because every client, every couple, every family that sits down with me is a unique individual that has their own story that I need to learn.
Right.
And if anybody's advisor who doesn't really get to know the story of who you are, it really is a family. I think all of us here on the panel realize the relationship we have with our clients. If we don't have that relationship with our clients, we don't really have a practice. We just have a job as a salesperson, and we're just trying to sell something. And I think that is unique in this industry. We've seen it in the past. There was a few bad apples in there that they've created all these little hurdles we have to get over, and I don't think that's such a bad thing. I mean, I love my compliance department, which is kind of scary to say for some people, but they work with us. And of course, Michael, you and I know the compliance department pretty well.
Right. Exactly.
And they're really good. They, if it's a good compliance department, they're not there about trying to stop us from being able to help people. But if you come into this business and you are about wanting to make people's lives better, the CEO of my company, Money Concepts, who Michael knows very well, as does Tanner, his whole kind of philosophy was the more you do for others, the more you do for yourself.
Right.
And if you think in that realm, talk about being humble, utilizing that approach to being able to work with clients and understand who they are and know those people as human beings and what their personal stories are, that's the kind of advisor and somebody who can help increase the financial literacy of each one of those clients, because they know how to communicate with them, they know the backstory, and they know how to put a plan together that they understand.
Absolutely. That's a great point. Toya, I want to touch on this real quick. I think it's important. Again, talking about identity and how that could maybe affect a person's ability to think they can invest or not invest or be wealthy. From a woman's point of view, having women clients, have they came and knocked on your door and said, hey, you know what, this is something probably I don't know or I shouldn't know? And how do you convince them that, hey, yeah, you can be wealthy. Yes, you can be rich. Yes, you can be very successful in this niche in financial planning. How would you go about that?
It's funny you say that because I'm 6 and 63 licensed. And so years ago, I'd say maybe I stopped about 6 or 7 years ago, I sold mutual funds and did some variable products. And I used to do women's seminars. And I did that to focus on women because so many times the advisors would default automatically to the men at the meeting and not necessarily at the women.
Right.
And first of all, I had both times I did that, I had to cut the registration off because so many women signed up. And so you want to encourage women, of course, just like we're saying, to become financially literate as early as possible, as soon as possible, with as much vigor as possible. So we encouraged them to read different articles. We provided articles for them. We gave them products that would assist them in growing whatever assets they brought to the table. So I think it's just encouraging women to step out and be a little bit more aggressive in that arena. And that's all they needed was just a slight push.
Right.
So we, both times that we did that, we had a great turnout and we had great success from those ladies. I did want to say though about the cultural question that you asked earlier. That shows up so much for me with life insurance. Because that is one thing. You have some cultures that just don't believe in life insurance, some cultures that believe in it heavily, some cultures that believe in, I don't want to leave. I could tell so many life insurance stories. We could be here till tomorrow. But there are some that only say, I want to leave maybe 50,000 because I don't want her to spend my money with another man or anything like that. So there are, and I believe in life insurance because I believe in leaving a financial legacy for your family, so that you're not, so that they're not struggling. Life insurance proceeds can give you time to decide what you want to do after you've lost your spouse. So it's really a core element in my agency. And we do end up spending a lot of time talking to clients based on their cultural input. So we see it all the time with life insurance and cultural differences.
Definitely. That's, we talk about that a lot with our kiddos, that they have a preconceived notion sometimes from a fixed mindset that they can't be rich or they can't be wealthy. It's not of them, or their values are not in alignment with trying to save, right? They want it now. They don't want to wait. They can't wait. They're not committed to a goal. So I think they go hand in hand. So that's definitely right on point. Tanner, I want to jump back to you real quick. Again, talking about the generation and where you are, and obviously looking at different investment vehicles, crypto and NFTs, and I want to get this money quick, right? How do you go about looking or describing different investment vehicles to your kid, or not to your kids, but to younger adults that want to make the money quick?
Yeah, I mean, I think it kind of goes back a little bit and kind of what I was maybe alluding towards with the humility side of things. I think it's very tempting at a young age, especially when you're seeing something skyrocket, such as crypto or an NFT, just to think that this is the next best thing, and that the older generation doesn't understand what you're talking about whenever they're saying be wary. But I think you can just take a trip down memory lane and historically study something Andy's talking about, which is the dot-com boom or bust. And just from listening to podcasts, reading up on that a little bit, it's like a company could increase their, net or their market value by 20% overnight by just saying they had a website. And so,
Right.
it seems like there's a little bit of a similar situation here. And I think, when I talk to people that are around my same age, and, kind of going on a detour, I in talking with somebody like that and serving them well, I might even tell them, just through a financial, not even talking about crypto or anything, but just through a financial conversation, just say like, hey, you don't need a financial advisor right now, but you need to go study and learn and become financially literate. And I'm more than willing to help you with those questions and things as you come across them. And one thing I try to convey in those conversations as well is, no matter what you think that you're going to invest in, make sure you have a very legitimate reason. And if you want to bounce an idea off me, you can. I'm not going to charge anything for it. But make sure that you have a very thought out and detailed reason as to why you think this is a good investment. And then what kind of Ralph was talking about as well, there's a purpose for each investment, right? So if you're going to go into cryptocurrency, or you're going to go into buy an NFT, you're probably not going to put your entire nest egg, or if you just had a newborn baby, put all the college funds in that.
Right.
But if you want to take maybe 5% of your portfolio value and put it in that, I have to be careful what I say because this is a recorded seminar, but you're probably, go have a field day with it.
Right.
But I would say that there's enough information out there, and we live in an information age, that it would be foolish to not at least do your research and have a legitimate reason as to why you are invested in something. Because a good investor over a long-term horizon is going to come back and check in on those investments and say, hey, here was my hypothesis in the initial investment that I made, and then here's how it's performing. Does that hypothesis still stand true? Yes, it does. Okay, we'll stay invested. If it still stands true and even stronger, maybe we buy more. If we don't think it's true anymore, then we have to be disciplined to get out of it.
Right.
And if you just go, blindly into things and follow trends, you're liable to kind of become very jaded towards investing very quickly.
Absolutely.
So, I mean, that's kind of, my spiel on all the, I guess, what you would say, the trend investing, what is hot, the popular investing.
And yes, it is being recorded, so you did well. You did well.
Don't take my license away.
Absolutely. I think I saw Lorenzo Alexander jump on. Zoe, you here? Maybe not. I thought I saw him jump on. So definitely want to wrap it up. I know we're coming to an end. Coach Hayes, you still there?
Yes.
Cool. What would be some closing words, just again from what you've seen, being 62 years old, seeing people, make money, lose money, having a life plan, you got your kids here, we're mentoring kids, left and right here at Ethos. What would be something that you would tell a young man, young woman, a new person coming into investing, and they have a life plan to, obviously become married, and they have belief, and faith. What would you tell them in regards to just staying invested and talking about emotion and all those good things? What would be something that you could tell those kids?
Well, again, I think you have to play the long game. You have to be patient. Don't just try to get everything all at once. And don't have your eyes be bigger than your stomach.
Right.
That where I need this, I need that. It's okay to wait on things. It's okay to wait, is what I would say is would be my advice. And have patience and know that you're not going to just come through to windfalls all the time.
Right.
There's been times when I started off coaching at Notre Dame, and Coach Holtz first hired me, he started me off so low on my pay that I got a letter from the human resources department like a week or two after I started, and they increased my salary like $5,000 because he started me off so low, and I didn't care. I was as happy as I could be that I was, he told me I was going to make $30,000 and give me a car. I was like, you betcha, man, let's go.
Right.
And and the fact that I was coaching at Notre Dame at 28 years old was pretty good too. But it's things happen, and the next thing you know, you're making six figures or seven figures, and you're like, oh, how the heck that happened? For coaching football or whatever, or whatever you do. I don't care what it is, my dad's a doctor, lawyer, Indian chief, whatever you do, be the best. And I was always happy doing my job. And, I had friends that all they did was think about making money, all day long, and they made a lot of money. And I didn't do bad myself, but I have friends that, used our Idaho educations and have done very well for themselves. And you know, you just have to make the most of what you get and go from there.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Zoe, did you jump on, Zoe?
Yes, sir. I'm back here.
Back in.
Yes.
Beautiful, man. Appreciate you jumping in real quick, right on time. Coach Hayes was talking about being patient. You've been in the league, played in the league for a lot of years. From your lens, you know, what is the creed or understanding about patience and value around patience and investing from what you've seen as a rookie and then making it through to your what is it, 15 years, 14
Right. You
years?
said as far as investing or just money in general?
Just money in general, investing. And so when you came in as a rookie and you saw
Yeah.
folks, hey, I need to get it right now, and then you're like,
Right.
okay, this guy made a bad decision, and you know,
Right.
just
So,
what's that for you?
you know, patience in a lot of ways is, I think, rooted in discipline, right? Because patience at its core means long suffering. And so people don't like to suffer, right? People want to be gratified instantaneously. And sometimes when you walk into a room where you have, you know, millionaires, you know, billionaires, if you want to include the owners, and you see what they're doing, you sometimes want to participate, right? But you're not in a place where you're able to do that. And so you have to suffer a little bit as far as participating because it's not the smartest thing to do. I think oftentimes we want to go with the trends instead of deciding what's best for my situation, for me and my family, my wife, if you're married at that time, and trying to figure out the best way to move forward. And so something that I practice, even, you know, investing now that, you know, I'm financially able to do a lot of different things is pause, right? We got all these commercials talking about there's power in pausing. And I take that same principle when I want to purchase anything, you know, even if it's like a pair of shoes or a car or a chain or clothes, and especially when you're taking, you know, investing, you know, whether you're purchasing a house or stocks, it's really, you know, try to figure out, is this something that I want to do because I see everybody else doing it? Or is this something I really want? And oftentimes when I take that pause and consider, you know, and some things are bigger than others, but I often find myself, I really don't want to do it. Oftentimes, especially when we talk about investing significant money, something comes out that says, oh, I'm glad I didn't do it. Because all money isn't good money, right? And so you have to take that time to do your due diligence, whether it's a small or big purchase or investment, and really count the cost. And, you know, I'm fortunate enough to find a financial advisor. My wife is really smart around money. And so we have these conversations that allow us to make the best decisions. And it's hard. You have to be confident in who you are and what you come up, because, you know, if you come up poor, like I did in Oakland, you want to go out there and splurge a little bit, right? You made all this sacrifice.
Right.
At the same time, you have to understand your current situation and be smart and understand that you're doing much more than just trying to satisfy instant gratification. But for me, it was all about, you know, how can I, you know, earn generational wealth, right? Because I'm having kids, and I just don't want to set myself up, right? I want to be able to pass something along with them. And as I matured and understood who I was able to do that at a high rep. But it is hard. You walk into a room and people got Porsches or Bentleys, or, you know, are going out and spending money, and you want to participate, right? You think those are the things that validate who you are in that space. But you have to just step back. And I think, you know, when we talk about ethos, really having that strong identity of who you are, what you're about, and ultimately what you want to achieve, a lot of those things ain't part of the process, ain't a part of you achieving financial freedom, right? You know, if I'd have bought, you know, a couple of Bentleys and a couple of big homes that I only use 1 or 2 rooms, I probably would have to be in a position right now where I would have to work, or made an investment in a restaurant because you think it's cool. I would probably have to work right now. But because I had good people around me, I was comfortable with who I was and what I had, I didn't allow those things to dictate who I was. You know, at 30, I'm 38, I can decide to work or not. And
Right.
just in a great position because I made those smart decisions for me and my family. And so I think that's the good thing of seeing on the other end is like, yeah, it sucks in the moment. I want to participate. I want to do those things. Hey, but when I'm 38, I may not have to work depending on what my my the field is and how much money I was able to make. And that was another thing I know Coach Hayes was talking. I never chased the money, right? That's what it started out as, but eventually became about relationships and how can I be the best person in my space. And then the money's a byproduct of that
Right.
approach. So
Great point.
Yeah. So that's kind of how I approached it and grew into that, right? Having a lot of good people around me, veterans, to kind of help me through that space as a young man in the league.
That's a great point. And I just want to reiterate that. So having a strong understanding of who you are, you didn't have to follow people. You didn't have to follow probably bad investment ideas because you didn't have a good understanding who you are, but you did. So you didn't have to go ahead and just follow the trends. You could step back and be comfortable and confident and do your research and say, hey, that's not of me. I know where I want to go. I have a life plan. And I can make decisions based on those key principles that may not be in alignment with somebody else's direction or decisions that they may have made. So I think that's a really key point that I want our kids to definitely understand, that those go hand in hand with your legacy plan, talking about your identity and your purpose and your value and setting your own goals as it relates to you generating generational wealth as you see it and what success is for you. So that's really good. So what I want to do right now is kind of wrap it up and give each person roughly 10 seconds, 15 seconds to just talk about what you want to tell. If you can go back in time and say, if I would have known these things, that what I know now, what would you done differently? What would you tell your kids? And the kids that are listening now, what would you say to them about financial literacy that was really, really helpful for you to generate financial wealth? So I will start with Andy and tell me about that. What would you tell our kids?
Well, I think the bottom line, and I think Zoe hit it on the head. Due diligence is very important in anything you're going to be involved with, whether it's even trying to figure out how to learn about wealth management or financial planning or financial literacy, and taking the time to step back and pause. I think that was a good point too, because a lot of times we just rush into things. And I was really lucky with my kids. I have a 32-year-old and a 26-year-old. They've done very well. They're entrepreneurs, but they learned very early on that I call it the 10 M's of money. You can make money, and your money can make money, but you'll never make as much money as your money can make. But you got to be able to do that the right way, and that just happens only if you think about who you are, keep that humble attitude, and allow yourself to be able to be a sponge and learn from people that you know and trust.
One more time, Andy. Say that one more time. I love that when you say that.
I got sued by Mars Candies because I had a little show where I said the M&Ms of money, and they didn't like that. And I was just glad somebody was watching the darn show, because I didn't think anybody watched the program. But it's, you can make money and your money can make money, but you'll never make as much money as your money can make.
Wow. I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. Toya, 10 seconds, 15 seconds, give me 15 seconds. What would you tell our kids?
I want you to remember one word: discipline. Discipline to me is the key factor to financial literacy. You have to be disciplined with what you save, disciplined with what you invest, disciplined even with your due diligence in learning about products. You always have to be disciplined. And as long as you can practice that, I feel like you'll be good with whatever comes out with you financially.
Awesome. I appreciate that. Wow. What would you tell our Ethos kids?
Live below your means.
Beautiful.
Don't live at your
Simple.
means. You'll always exceed them.
Love it. Tanner Wells, talk to me.
Yeah, I think just understanding the journey, right? I think Zoe, I loved Zoe's visual that he was giving us. Walking into a room, you're seeing a bunch of millionaires, billionaires, and you see them right there in that moment. But you don't see the story that they went through and the path that they took to get there. And you may be at the beginning of your road, but understand it's a journey. You're gonna hit some bumps along the road. It's not gonna be perfect, but continue to push on, learn more, be a sponge, and just soak up as much as you can. And then, to Toya's point, discipline, discipline, discipline.
Fantastic. It's on you, Coach Hayes. Take us home.
I'll leave you with this. Luke 6:48. They are like a man building a house who dug deep and laid the foundation on rock. When the flood came, the torch struck the house, but could not shake it because it was well built. So build your fortune on rock and not on sand, and you will go far.
Amen. Thank you, Coach, man. I appreciate it. That's why I love that man right there. That's those nuggets.
Yeah.
Well, thank you guys. Thank you so much for being part of the village, financial literacy. Again, I love what everybody had to say based on their own lens and understanding about money and how it connects to who you are, and having a strong understanding, like Zoe talked about, of who you are, where you can go in life, and money's just a byproduct of that. And I think those are key elements that we all talked about in our own way. So again, I appreciate your time being on the show, and God bless all you guys.